Hello! In this video I'm going to compare interviews with William and Kate and Charles and Diana, and I think that's going to show us how healthy William and Kate's relationship is in comparison. For a lot of people who enter abusive relationships, it feels familiar, and that's the problem because they've experienced something like that in childhood. So I'm hoping that this will be useful in helping people to notice that this isn't actually how it should be. The first interview I'm going to look at was on the equivalent of Good Morning Britain, but an 80s version. And so here's the first question.
Your Royal Highness, Lady Diana, since the engagement was announced, you've both done quite a bit of travelling and you've met a large number of people. What sort of reactions have you encountered to your marriage?
So notice at the beginning of the question, he states both of their names.
Your Royal Highness, Lady Diana.
He's talking to both of them. He's asking them both the question.
Oh, the most overwhelming and touching reactions as far as we've been concerned. I of course, went to New Zealand and Australia and Venezuela and then America on the way back. This was in April and May, and there people were amazingly friendly and enthusiastic. And since then, all the times I've been around different parts of the country here, the reaction has been literally fantastic, and I've never seen so many people around and such friendliness and overwhelming sort of generosity and endless cards and presents and just, I think, the most marvellous, warm, affectionate reaction, which I just find incredibly touching.
I don't know how many times Charles just said I, but it was a lot of times. All he did was talk about himself and his own experience of the public.
Lady Diana, meeting so many people is still quite new to you. How have you reacted to this warmth and affection?
It's been a tremendous boost. And just a mass of smiling faces. It's wonderful.
Quite emotional too.
Oh, very, very is.
So Andrew Gardner has had to ask the same question again to Diana. He's had to include her because Charles hasn't.
I mean, I wanted to be able to take the opportunity to say how really, really grateful we are for such, I mean, incredible kindness. I can't get over it. And I think there have been, what now, something like over 3,000 presents. And I looked this morning, and there's a corridor stacked with, I don't know, 40 sacks full of presents and mail still, which we can't get through. And I mean, it's incredible.
You've obviously had a staggering amount of mail, and I'm sure you've been able to look at some of it yourselves. Is there anything that's particularly touched you?
So this time he does include her. And I don't know where Angela Rippon was looking. I don't know if I could see she was looking at Charles, but at that point we look at Charles, you know, the camera is on him. So I don't know if she then looked at Diana, and that's why Diana started speaking.
For me, all the things that come from children who've obviously spent hours of work on paintings, pictures, cards, anything like that, and things they've baked at home. It's wonderful.
Baked?
Oh, yes.
Have you had cakes?
Yes. There's so many Smarties, you can hardly see what it is. And it's lovely. Really nice.
You had a very special collage from the children at the kindergarten.
Yes, I
didn't
collected
you?
it last Friday when I went to the end-of-term party, which I ended up being battered and bruised. There's so many children crawling on top of me. But they presented me with that and a glass representing young England. It was lovely and really nice.
When Diana was talking about the children clambering on top of her, it seemed a little bit boastful, and I wondered if she was feeling competitive because Charles has just gone on about his travels, you know, to all these different countries and talked about things that Diana hasn't been a part of. Let's compare this to an interview with William and Kate. This was when they were announcing their engagement.
William and Kate, people are obviously incredibly curious about you. So let's start with the obvious. William, where did you propose? When, how, and Kate, what did you say?
It was about 3 weeks ago on holiday in Kenya.
William and Kate are sitting slightly at an angle, so they're slightly facing each other.
As every guy out there will know, it takes a certain amount of motivation to get yourself going. So I was planning it, and then it just felt really right out in Africa. It was beautiful at the time, and I had done a little bit of planning to obviously show my romantic side.
The question was for William and not both of them, so William answered, but he included Kate when he was answering. He looked at her. He also didn't go on and on like Charles did, and I think that's because he seems to be aware of Kate's presence, you know, that this isn't an interview that's just about him, that it's about both of them.
Of course, music is a special feature, sir, of the wedding service. Could you tell us something about your choice of music?
Well, the other thing is I've always longed to have a musical wedding. And one of the reasons, fortunately anyway, we both love St Paul's, which was, thank goodness, a good start. But one of the reasons I particularly wanted to be married to St Paul's was because I think that, musically speaking, it is such a magnificent setting, and the whole acoustics is so spectacular, with a 10 or 11 second sort of after sound, after note. And so I've taken a lot of interest in that, and actually in the whole thing. And I very much wanted to take a hand in the organisation from the very beginning. And I've had great fun organising the music, with a great deal of help from the director of the Royal College of Music, Sir David Wilcox, who I've known for some years, through the Bach Choir, which I'm president of, and he runs. And so we've had a marvellous time getting together 3 orchestras that I'm patron of, and the Bach Choir that I'm president of.
Charles went on for another 30 seconds, and I've cut that bit out because he's already gone on for over a minute. So he again seems to be behaving as if he's being interviewed on his own and Diana isn't there. Charles comes across to me as very serious and self-important.
Okay, you'd been on holiday a while, so did you see this coming? Was he getting a bit nervous and jumpy?
No, not at all, no, because we were out there with friends and things, so I really didn't expect it at all. I thought he might have sort of maybe thought about it, but no. It was a total shock when it came, and very excited.
So Kate isn't holding back. She's telling us she's excited to be marrying William, and it shows her respect for William as well, because she's being a bit vulnerable here.
Produced the ring?
Yeah.
There and then?
I did, yeah. I'd been carrying it around with me in my rucksack for about 3 weeks before that, and I literally would not let it go. Everywhere I went, I was keeping hold of it, because I knew this thing, if it disappeared, I'd be in a lot of trouble. And yeah, because I planned it, it went fine. As you know, you'll hear a lot of horror stories about proposing and things going horribly wrong. It went really, really well, and yeah, I was really pleased that she said yes.
For 3 weeks he was carrying it around, so it shows he'd put all this thought into when it was going to be. It had to be at exactly the perfect time, and he was nervous. So again, he's showing respect for Kate. He's showing us that if she'd said no, or if things hadn't gone quite right, then it would have been horrible for him. He was really relieved it didn't go wrong. So she had a lot of power in this situation. And by telling us that, he's giving her power now.
What about the proposal, Your Royal Highness? How did that come about?
Well, I asked Diana before she went to Australia, 2 or 3 days before, because I thought it would be a good idea that, apart from anything else, if she went to Australia, she could then think about it, and if she didn't like the idea, she could say she didn't, or if she did, she could say that. But in fact, you actually said
Yes, quite promptly.
Before you went to Australia?
Yes.
So here Charles appears to be doing the same thing. He appears to be empowering Diana and showing her respect, because he's saying that he gave her the opportunity to think about it. You know, he wanted her to have time. So in other words, he seems to be being humble, like she had a decision to make. She probably wouldn't be sure. She has the power in this situation. But then he finishes it off with laughing about how she decided to marry him very quickly.
She could say that, but in fact, you actually said
Yes, quite promptly.
Before you went to Australia?
Yes.
And so that then undermines all of this, and it suggests that he was just doing it for effect, you know. He was kind of trying to be charming. He's showing her up. The joke's sort of on her for making her mind up immediately.
But it's you see, I think the thing which is very important with a big cathedral and a long aisle, and you said it took 3.5 minutes
Something like that.
to walk up, you want something very stirring and dramatic and noisy to carry you up. Because if you have something rather quiet, you start hearing your ankles cricking, you know what I mean? And it's much more difficult to walk without, you know, something very sort of stirring. So this is what we tried to find, was stirring things.
You're not worried about that 3.5 minute walk?
No, I go along with everybody else.
Charles looks bored when Diana's answering the question. Charles looks like he's really not interested in her response.
Did you choose any of the hymns yourself, any of the music?
The one here, My Verity in My Country, which has always been my favourite since school days.
Do you have a favourite hymn or psalm?
Yes, well, the one I chose was Christ Has Made the Sure Foundation, which has got the most marvellous harmony. I find it very moving. So I shall, I think, spend half the time in tears.
So he would be in tears because of the music choice, not actually because of Diana. So he seems to be in his own world now and imagining being in his own world at the wedding. And even the way they're sitting is very separate. I'm going to leave it here and continue to look at these interviews in the next video. So if you haven't subscribed, please subscribe and I'll see you then.